If you've ever chosen one important priority on Sunday and watched it disappear by Tuesday under emails, requests, interruptions, errands, and other people's urgent problems, this episode is for you. You're not failing because you lack discipline. Most high-capacity women don't have a discipline problem. They have a protection problem because priorities don't survive by intention alone. They survive by boundaries. Today, we're talking about how to protect what matters most without guilt, without disappearing from your responsibilities, and without feeling like you're letting everyone down. This is Goals and Grace with Certified High Performance Coach, Reverend Dr. Juliet Spencer. One practical framework and a faith truth to cut overwhelm and claim your calling. Ready to lead with love, not depletion? Let's go. Last week, we talked about integrity in our yes and no. This week is about stewardship. Because faithfulness isn't just saying yes to what matters, it's protecting that yes after you make it. Jesus understood this beautifully. There were moments Jesus allowed interruptions, and there were moments he walked away from the crowd, left people waiting, stopped answering demands, and protected the assignment God had given him in that moment. That means even Jesus did not treat every request as equally urgent. My friend, that realization changed me. For years, I genuinely believed being constantly available was part of being faithful. If someone needed me, I responded. A staff member had a crisis, I jumped in. Someone wanted a pastoral visit, I rearranged my schedule. And meanwhile, the things God had actually placed deeply on my heart, or maybe even just the things that weren't necessarily holy, but that I wanted to do, kept getting pushed to later. Teaching, writing, building, resting, even relationships. There were so many nights husband and I planned time together, and I would say, I just need to finish this one thing. Except it was rarely just one thing. It was death by 1,000 interruptions. And here's what finally convicted me. Most of the things interrupting my priorities were not life-threatening emergencies. Someone being disappointed is not the same thing as someone being abandoned. Let me say that again. Someone being disappointed is not the same thing as someone being abandoned. That was hard for me to admit because I wanted to be helpful. And if I'm honest, I wanted to be needed. I didn't want anyone frustrated or mad with me. But eventually I realized something else. Every time I failed to protect what mattered most, I was training people to believe my priorities were optional, including me. Then I started noticing something about Jesus. Jesus sometimes stopped for interruptions, but sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he healed the person in front of him, and sometimes he withdrew from the crowd to pray. Sometimes he taught all day, and sometimes he got into a boat and left. Which means wisdom is not saying yes to everything. Wisdom is discerning what God is asking of you in this moment. That changed the way I saw boundaries forever. What transformed my life wasn't becoming harder or colder. It was learning to protect what mattered before the interruptions arrived. I stopped hoping my priorities would survive the week, and I started designing my week so that they could. Because here's the truth. If you don't decide ahead of time what gets protected, something urgent will consume everything important. That's why decision fitness matters. It helps you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. Your priority needs a location before life starts swinging at you. So don't leave it floating in your mind like a good intention. Put it on the calendar first. not after everyone else gets your best hours first. And when you schedule the block, define success specifically. So, for example, don't say work on podcast. Instead, define the block by saying draft opening story and closing CTA. Specificity reduces resistance. Your brain relaxes when it knows exactly what to do. And decide the first 5 minutes before the block even begins, because the hardest part of deep work is not ability, it's friction. Most interruptions feel urgent in the moment, but very few actually are. You don't need to become unavailable to everyone, but you do need to stop treating every request like an alarm bell. One sentence can change your week. For example, you might say, I'm in the middle of a focused work block right now. I can look at this after 11. That's not selfish. That is stewardship. And sometimes people may feel disappointed. In fact, they probably will. But disappointment is survivable. Constant distraction is not. So, my friend, listen carefully. This is not about becoming rigid. Real life happens. Kids get sick. Meetings explode. People genuinely need us sometimes. But mature leadership doesn't abandon the priority every time life shifts. And it recovers quickly. If a block gets interrupted, don't spiral into guilt and quit for the week. Reschedule it within 24 hours. Integrity isn't perfection. Integrity is returning. Knowing that distinction has been a life changer for me. Integrity isn't perfection. Integrity is returning. This week, I want you to stop asking, how do I become more disciplined? And start asking, what deserves my protection? Because the future you want will not be built accidentally. It will be built by what you consistently protect. So here's your challenge. Schedule 2 protected blocks for your most important priority this week, and tell one trusted person. Complete one micro milestone in the very first block, and then celebrate the follow through. Because every protected priority teaches your brain, hey, my calling matters too. My priorities are important. Because every protected priority teaches your brain, hey, my calling matters too. And after all, isn't that something to celebrate? But to have a priority, to have a direction and ignore it because everybody else's interruptions takes priority, will get you nowhere. All right, my friend, I hope that this has been helpful. If it has, would you let me know by DMing me on social media? And if you know someone else who could use this kind of help, I hope you'll pass it along. Listen to Goals and Grace wherever you get your podcasts. And grab my One Clear Win by Noon 11-minute reset. That's One Clear Win by Noon 11-minute reset. And who doesn't have 11 minutes? And it will help you start your first focused block strong. You can get the link in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and may God bless you with goals and grace.